Hey, it's Kevin Lawton with the New Warehouse Podcast, bringing you a new episode today. And on today's episode, I am joined by Rich Bulger. He is the author of Going Circular. I got it right here. The Evolution of Reverse Logistics into a Competitive Weapon. And he's also the recipient of a recent master's degree in reverse logistics, which I will tell you the first time I connected with him, met with him, I didn't even know that was a thing that was possible. So we're going to definitely dive into that a little bit. We're going to talk about the book and we're going to talk about reverse logistics overall and really how to use it as a competitive weapon, as his book says. And we're going to talk about his background too and how he's gotten to this devotion of reverse logistics and passion for reverse logistics. So, Rich, welcome to the show. How are you?
Kevin, thanks for having me. I'm doing great. Thank you.
Absolutely. It's great to get you on here. And at first I'll say congratulations. You just told me before we started recording, you just walked the stage to get that master's degree in reverse logistics. So I'll say congratulations first to you, sir.
It is possible to teach an old dog new tricks.
Absolutely, absolutely. So tell us a little bit about your background, I guess overall, and kind of how it just led to this love for reverse logistics, writing a book about it, getting a degree about it. I mean, tell us a little bit about your background.
Sure. I joined the Army at 17 as a truck driver. Served in the 101st
Okay.
Airborne Division, won Six Soldier of the Month, Soldier of the Quarter boards, and before I knew it, I was driving the third highest ranking officer, walking the halls with generals at a very young age. So,
Wow.
from a leadership perspective, I had some of the best that were pouring into me, and I'm very grateful for that. After the military, I had a 17-year career at Verizon Wireless, where I started as a
Mhm.
temp from a deco, taking bill payments in a store in Columbia, South Carolina. I like to say a couple things. Number one, you couldn't start lower in the organization than I started.
That's
And
your prep, yeah.
number two, I was really great at taking bill payments. I would greet people with a smile. I'd ask them how their
Mm.
day was. I'd check their rate plan to see if they were on the best one. And I would also check to see if they were eligible for an upgrade, so I could go through and pass them off to a sales rep. Kevin, after about 2 weeks of that temp role, they put a machine in that store. And you know what
Mm.
that machine did?
What's that?
It took bill payments. So my very first job got automated.
Yeah.
And it was a message to me that just because the task went away, my value did not go away.
Mm.
And I went from a temp to part time customer service to part time sales, full time sales, senior sales. I ran the top retail store for Verizon in the South, and eventually I
Mm.
ran the top retail district of 270 in Verizon Wireless. So
Mm.
half of my life I spent on commission sales. In 2009, a job was created for me. I became the youngest director in Verizon, and my job had two remits. The first one was operations. I call it risk management. I had to
Mm.
figure out how to get inventory into stores. I had to figure out how to get it out of stores. Had over 170 locations, a couple hundred franchise locations, a business to business team that I supported. So part of the metrics of success for that job was driving down unwanted returns,
Mhm.
driving down no trouble found on the warranty items that we were sending back to get repaired, driving down unwanted discounts. So half of my job was risk management. The other half of my job was risk. It was a $6 billion region with 10 million subscribers, and I had to figure out how to get customers and keep customers, continuity marketing.
Yeah.
So in 2010, a couple of things happened. Number one, Verizon was on the precipice of launching the very first iPhone,
Mm.
and that iPhone changed the subsidy model. About 30% of all devices that we sold were smartphones,
Mm.
and we wanted to grow that share. In order to do that and make the smartphone sales financially viable, they ended a retention discount we had where we gave a customer $100 to go through and upgrade their contract.
Yeah.
So, me being the person that I am,
Mhm.
operations, I had to enforce the no discounting policy.
Yeah.
Marketing, I had to make sure that we didn't lose market share. I went to my regional president, great leader, and I said we were going to have a challenge because at that point, T Mobile was starting to do the uncarrier thing.
Okay.
And we had trained customers. I had trained customers and teams of sales leaders to go through and promise that discount.
Mm.
So when I went to him and I said, hey, we're going to hurt more than any other part of the organization after losing this discount, My boss, great man, looked at me like any good leader would and said, Rich, you're probably right. But do
Yeah.
you know what I would love more than knowing what the problem is? Bring me
What's
three
the
solutions.
solution? Yeah.
So the solution that I had that I liked the most was there was a company that I met that wanted to go through and buy devices back,
Mm.
but they weren't involved in the transaction when a customer was more likely to trade in their device. For instance, two of the most successful circular economies that exist on the planet, no one considers circular.
Mm.
Real estate. You're not going to recycle your house when you
Oh
move
yeah.
out.
Yeah.
You're not going to recycle your car when you upgrade. So real estate and automotive are ones where product naturally goes from one owner to the next, which is
Right.
my definition of a circular economy.
Yeah.
And there's whole subsets of warranties and finance for customer two, customer three, customer four. So my Army truck driver brain thought, well, if I could go through, apply the value of a customer's old device towards their next purchase, I'm going to sell more things.
Mm.
And by going through and selling that product back to the company that wanted to buy it, it was a new revenue stream.
Mm.
So I had to figure out how to go through and apply that value to the next purchase. We worked up a gift card program. I had to figure out how to ship the devices, not to the facility in Fort Worth, Texas, but to one in Indiana. And
Mm.
we devised a simple way to go through and put the recycled device in a green bag and put them in a 10 slot box to mail them off to separate them from other returns that needed to go someplace else. And I kind of fell into reverse logistics the same way
Mm.
that most of my peers fell into it, just by trying to
Yeah.
solve a problem. And my vantage point was I got into it from sales.
Mm.
There was 15 different district managers that we had in our region, and only two of them wanted to try the program. The rest thought it's not worth my time. I'd rather focus on selling accessories and doing things. And my finance team thought I was crazy trying to buy phones back from a cell phone company.
Yeah.
The guy behind me, his picture is my old finance associate director. I called him Mr. No for a while, and then I started calling him Dr. No after he told me no so much. But he's like, Rich, we're a cell phone company, spelled
Mm.
SELL, not a buy
Mm.
phone company.
Yeah.
So when I knew we were onto something, Region Review, the two districts that had the program were number one and number two in year-over-year growth and all of the attachments that we had.
Mm.
And the other 13 district managers complained about not having the program as a reason why their sales results weren't as good.
Yeah.
So, boss, being a good boss, said, hey, put them in all the stores.
Mm.
And very shortly after, we're one of 21 regions. Our region was number one in sales growth and number one in all attachments. And we had brought to the senior executive team, the C-suite, a program that drove incremental sales revenue.
Mm-hmm.
Made sense to me. We were able to sell more things with more money in customers' pockets. A new revenue stream. The revenue generated from the sale of used devices was more than all of the accessories that we sold on average.
Mm.
The customers won because they got a benefit. The environment won because we kept things out of landfills and promoted recirculation. And our organic return rates also dropped, which makes sense because if you trade in your
Yeah.
old thing, it's much harder to return it and go back to it if you don't have it anymore.
That's true.
So after the region review, the CEO said, we'll put them in all of our stores. So my claim to fame is I started Verizon's very first retail trade-in program.
Mm-hmm.
And after that review, I got a call from the vice president of supply chain saying, Rich, you're pretty good at reverse logistics, I hear. How would you like to move your family to Fort Worth, Texas
Yeah.
and run Verizon CRTC?
Mm.
And I said what every one of my friends that I talk to says when I tell them what I do for a living. Sounds really great, but what is reverse logistics and what is a CRTC?
Yeah.
Centralized returns and testing center. So I got to run an operation that pushed 15 million products through a warehouse.
Wow.
I could spend 300 million running operations, movement throughout the facility, and repair, taking product and fixing it to reuse it in our warranty loops or eventually for certified pre-owned sales. And after 2 years of that, the trade-in program that no one wanted to do had just broke $1 billion in revenue.
Wow.
And I was challenged with going through and growing the revenue by 300 million, the exact amount I spent on my operation, in 12 months. My
Mm.
operation role was split into one new director, and the repair role was shifted to another director. So my job was split in two, and I was challenged with growing a $1 billion revenue stream. Kevin, what I learned about being successful in reverse logistics and the circular economy is you have to work on three things. How do you get product? How do you
Hmm.
process it efficiently? And how do you generate value for it? So I seek new sources of supply. I put Verizon on eBay, Amazon, Sears.com with product listing in good, better, best
Yeah.
condition under three different brands, not just the Verizon brand, but we created two sub brands that were able to sell product at a higher rate at a lower price without competing
Mm.
with our main brand.
Yeah.
And in 2 years, I grew it from $1 billion to $1.6 billion.
Mm.
Before, we had a new CEO that came in, and the CEO said, hey, we're paying too many people too much money. So if you weren't on commission, you were offered an early retirement option. And by
Mm.
that point, I've been a director for more than 10 years.
Yeah.
Even though I was running 2% of Verizon's revenue with a team of 8,
Hmm.
no one knew what I did. And when I went to work
Yeah.
and saw that number, it was enough to pay off my house and put both my kids through college.
Mm.
So I love my team. I
Imagine.
love my mission. I love what I
Yeah.
did, but I couldn't afford to stay. I couldn't look my
Mm.
wife in the eye and say I was being a good steward if I didn't click the button.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
And reverse logistics professionals at scale that have built circular economy programs are in high demand. So
Hmm.
I had 7 different job offers, and I went 2 routes. The first route that I went is I went to Cisco Networking and Computing, Cisco Systems.
Hmm.
So I wanted to learn. Cisco wasn't the highest paying job, but it was the hardest job offer that I had.
Mm.
So I wanted to see if what I learned about reverse logistics, everything has a cost to reuse, everything has a blended benefit, and what you should or should not do has a numerical story that you could follow.
Mm.
Cisco was a maker of things, a brand. Verizon was a distributor of things. They distributed Apple, Samsung, Motorola. And Cisco made different things than what I was used to. So I wanted to see if what I learned could scale into a different genre. And it
Mm.
did. Verizon, we basically did domestic reverse logistics. At Cisco, I got to do international reverse logistics. I got to run a
Okay.
plant in the Netherlands, Hong Kong, Japan, here in the
Yeah.
US. I had 12 places to help me move product across borders and over 50 different in-country recycling locations.
Mm.
And I got to introduce different programs that helped Cisco turn their reverse logistics operation from running at a cost to giving more benefit back through programs that we ran than the entire cost to run the programs. I like to say we put solar panels on reverse logistics. If you have solar panels in your house
Yeah.
and you use less power than what you consume, then your meter will run backwards and you'll give more energy back to the grid and the power company will actually pay you.
Right. Yeah.
I love the thought of having reverse logistics more than pay for itself. So it was the second Fortune 50 company that I did that in. The second thing that I did is I started consulting with a group of young men from Brooklyn that started buying and selling Nike shoes at 16, cleaning
Okay.
the toes with a toothbrush, stuffing the toes with
Yeah.
newspaper, listing them for what they were worth and selling them, knowing the market price. They were doing circular economy work before they knew what circular economy work even was.
Interesting.
And after they did that with sneakers and apparel, they took a look and said, "What's the top selling thing in the circular platform that they were working on,
Mm.
eBay?" And that was a cell phone. Turns out the top selling cell phone at that time was a BlackBerry, 6 screws. So they taught themselves how to fix it. Um, and before they knew it, they were a $27 million a year company.
Oh,
And I started advising them, teaching them value stream mapping and process engineering, and I watched their revenues grow. Um, During the 3 years I was at Cisco and the 3 vice presidents I had, um, COVID happened. COVID disrupted the supply chain more than anything else in recent times.
yeah. Absolutely.
COVID also disrupted and changed how people shop for products. So used items became a lot more attractive because there wasn't enough new product. And if you could get your hand on new product, it was so expensive that used alternatives were becoming more and more attractive.
Mm.
So I left Cisco and took over the ARA Global Group and immediately rebranded them Recirc, short for Recirculate, to give them a global vision with a sustainable mission to reuse first, recycle last, and never waste.
Hmm.
Something that was attractive to get supply and attractive to consumers that were looking to acquire used things. And during that time, I also spent 3 years in the advisory board of the Reverse Logistics Association. So I got to work with counterparts in different parts of the industry: apparel, home goods, sporting goods, makers of things, distributors of things, different businesses that help enable the movement from point to point. And I found out through them that we all had the same problem: very complicated work
Hmm.
and very few resources and training on how to do it. There was a
Yeah.
study from Deloitte that was done a couple of years ago, 2022, where they said that Gen Z and millennials, 70% of them are aware of their carbon footprint and
Hmm.
are actively taking steps to mitigate it. They're willing to spend more on a product as long as it's sustainable. And that's going to be the top buying demographic in a
Mm.
couple of years.
Yeah.
And they're also saying that they want their companies to take a more proactive approach on their carbon footprint. So for
Mm.
me, um, where you like to say warehouses are sexy, I see the shirt behind you.
Oh yeah, there we go.
And I'm sure they're available for sale someplace. I need to buy one. I wanted to make reverse logistics sexy.
Yeah.
Um, and that's where the evolution of returns being a necessary evil and unwanted outcome, the way I started it in 2009, driving down unwanted returns.
Mm.
When I found that you can drive up some returns, make money on it, make customers happy, help the environment, Kevin, it's a win-win-win.
Mm.
Environments win, businesses win, customers win through reverse logistics. The
Yeah.
same processes, the same systems and architecture, warehouses, systems and tools, resources, assessing cosmetic and functional um, criteria, learning the value that you can generate. The same RL resources that are needed to drive down unwanted returns are the same ones that are needed to drive up circular economy returns. And that put me in this journey of trying to go through and become an advocate for teaching people how reverse logistics can benefit a company's bottom line and the environment at the same time.
Mm. Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's such a great kind of journey of just learning and discovery that you've been on in this somewhat as you mentioned, several people are kind of like, what is that, right? This almost invisible realm, we could say, in a sense, that people don't necessarily think about, because a lot of times I think people they return something or they get rid of something and they don't necessarily think about like what happens after that, right? I mean, it's out of my life, so I guess it's done, right? But there's so many things that could happen, and obviously, very interesting to hear about the Verizon kind of trade-in program and things like that, where you know that's just common practice now, right? I mean, we upgrade the phone, we're like waiting to see like, oh, am I eligible for upgrade? Am I eligible for upgrade? Or we buy it back, whatever the case may be. I mean, and or we can get those used ones. We have the protection plan. I mean, I just got a refurbished one like a couple months ago because my battery blew up inside, like like swelled. But yeah, I mean, I think it's incredible to see that and then hear about too the positive result on that side. Like, I mean, as you said, that program was generating $1.6 billion at the time that you were done there. I mean, I think that's incredible to see because I think there's a lot of talk around returns and having to deal with returns is expensive and all these things. So I'm curious in that regard. I mean, for a company that's maybe they're taking returns, they're having some trouble trying to figure out a good process for this reverse logistics side of their business. I mean, how do you how would you advise them to kind of approach it in a way so that they can pivot and turn that into a beneficial thing for them?
Great question. The first thing I would do is recommend understanding the size of the problem, because the size of the
Mm.
problem creates the urgency.
Right.
People say returns are bad. I was just reading an article from Scott Case, Vice President of Sustainability from the National Retail Federation. In
Hmm.
2023, the retail portion of the U.S. economy generated $5.13 trillion.
That's
So
insane.
big
Yeah.
number. The amount of returns impacted that number by over $740 billion,
Mm.
over 14%. Think about it. For every 1 billion you make in sales, you're giving back over 140 million back to the customer.
Yeah.
That percentage is up from 8% just a couple of years ago, which
Mm.
makes sense. Online returns have about a 17% return rate versus in-store returns having about a 10% return rate.
Mm.
So as the industry has shifted to omni-channel and online through COVID, the sales channel has evolved faster than the return programs to support it.
Mm.
An example, Kevin, if you go in and you want to buy the shirt that you're wearing into a retail store, you'll go through, you'll buy three,
Oh.
or you'll try on three, and you'll pick the one that you want, the size, the fit, the color. You'll put the other two back on the shelf,
Mhm.
and the next customer will buy it. But as one transaction leaves the store, sales complete, it walks out, two things that have been superficially handled are still on the shelf waiting to be sold.
Right.
In an online world, you may go through and buy three shirts. So three are shipped to you. You try them on, superficially handling them, and
Mhm.
you send the other two back. If those other two go from new to used and are devalued, well, now you've introduced waste by having the same policy cover a different shopping environment. So you're seeing some companies go
Right.
through and use seals to put shoes together, so you can try them on to see how they fit. And if you break the seal, well, then it goes used and you can't send it back.
Yeah.
But if you look at the unwanted return, $740 billion, going through reverse logistics, and you combine that with the size of the secondary market for products, because the internet and circular platforms have made it much easier to match used supply with used demand than ever before.
Mm.
Your eBays, your Amazons, your flip swaps, your swappas. Um, ThreadUp said that 42% of Gen Z and millennials are checking the resale value of their clothing before they even buy it, because there's
Oh yeah.
marketplaces that allow you to match the used supply with used demand.
Mm.
Projections and run rates for the secondary market in the US are now in excess of $700 billion. So if you add in unwanted returns going through reverse logistics,
Mhm.
$750 billion, and you add in the positive aspects of um, the secondary market through reverse logistics process at over $700 billion, you've got about $1.5 billion of a $5.1 trillion industry going through reverse logistics, and no one's trained how to do it.
Yeah. 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 I think it's interesting to see that. And I think it's such a you mentioned there Gen Z, they're checking to see what the resale value is like of things before they purchase it. And you mentioned the sneakers earlier too, and I have to say, like, when I was younger, I used to be very much into sneakers and collecting Nikes and all these different things. And but I saw like the shift where there became like this huge like resale market for everything. And I kind of, for me, like, I kinda lost interest at that point because it was like people were just trying to, like, get something, like, I think this is a lot of Gen Z too, right? Like, they're trying to, like, get the outfit or something, like, show it on TikTok, Instagram, whatever, and then, like, oh, like, then now I'll sell it and, like, get a new outfit, right, to, like, get my likes or whatever. But, I mean, I think it's interesting to see that. So, I mean, with that, you mentioned that there at the end that people aren't equipped or trained to be able to handle this influx and do this. So I mean, what would be your advice there? I mean, how do you, if I'm 3PL, for example, right? And I have these brands that are all these returns are coming back. I deal with apparel or shoes, whatever the case may be, and we're seeing the bracketing returns there, like you mentioned. Buying multiple sizes and then sending back what doesn't fit. I mean, how do I get my processes together? I mean, how do I create that awareness? I mean, how do I ultimately tackle this problem to drive value for myself, drive value for my clients? I mean, what's the best way to go about that and really get started?
Yeah. So when I was a retail district manager, I had
Mm,
17 stores. I had over 250 employees, and that job was easier because I had 17 managers that were finding ways to solve problems
mm,
that I could collaborate with, find the bright spots, and get everyone on the same page. And if I couldn't find it in my district, I would go through and call one of my 270 friends that were running districts and look at the one that had the best results and share best practices. In reverse logistics, that community does not exist within an organization. There's no one to call to
yeah.
say, how are you doing it?
Hmm.
And, if you're lucky, you go through and you shadow with someone that knows what they're doing. I was recently at the Reverse Logistics Association event launching my book, Going Circular: The Evolution of Reverse
Hmm.
Logistics into a Competitive Weapon. So I'm doing a keynote with over 900 people that do what I do for a living. You're
Mm,
talking behemoths, Walmart, Amazon, the 3PLs that make them function, the transportation providers that move, people who
yeah.
test and diagnose. And I ask people to raise their hand if they've ever taken a college course on business, supply chain, or logistics.
Mm,
And a few hands went up.
yeah.
I said, cool, keep them up. If you've ever taken one college course on reverse logistics, you guys are the professionals.
Yeah.
Every hand went down except for one
Mm,
that I recognized.
yeah.
And I said, all right, put your hand down if you're not teaching a course on reverse logistics.
Yeah.
And Dr. Hitchpath put his hand down.
Yeah.
Um, so I said, all right, how many of you have a corporate training program? Like when I came into reverse logistics at Verizon from sales, I had a great boss who knew a lot, but there was no onboarding plan. When I
Hmm.
went to Cisco, my second Fortune 50 company, Gartner award winning supply chain, there was no onboarding to teach people how to do reverse logistics, which is why in the advisory board of the Reverse Logistics Association, a place where people can go and meet like minded professionals that have the same problems. That's how I started going through and trying to educate myself. I heard about one college, the American Public University Systems, that has two branches: American Military Universities, where a lot of soldiers go for correspondence courses and getting an online education, and the
Hmm.
American Public University, the civilian part. The Reverse Logistics Association sponsored a course in 2013 with APU and built a 4-year degree program and a master's degree program in reverse logistics. I
Wow.
thought that was super cool.
Yeah.
So, through my Verizon career, I moved 6 times. Military moved me around a bit. I went to 6 different colleges before I was able to put together my very first 2-year degree at 29.
Mm,
I put together my 4-year degree at 33. So when I was on the advisory board and I heard that there was an online course in reverse logistics with a master's degree program, I thought, how cool would it be if I could
yeah.
use my company's tuition assistance
Hmm.
to find out if there's a way I could go through and find a training program for my new employees. Number one. Number two, I thought it was really cool because it's hard enough to find someone that knows what reverse logistics even is,
Yeah. Absolutely.
let alone being in school with people that are trying to pursue a degree in it. So I thought I'll go on and I'll recruit. I thought it was a responsible thing for an advisory board member to do, to see what the curriculum looked like and be a part and try to influence the next generation.
Mm,
So for those reasons, I signed up for the program, and as you mentioned, I just walked the stage on Saturday to complete my master's degree in reverse logistics.
nice.
So, but my recommendation is you've got to build a program. There's got to be an onboarding plan. There's got to be people that you can talk to. I
Mm,
wrote my book, Going Circular: The Evolution of Reverse Logistics into a Competitive Weapon. It's over 350 pages. It's got a 33-page glossary of terms. I wrote this to be something that I could give to my new employees
mm,
to say, here's what reverse logistics is. Here's how everything moves. Because what I love about logistics is it reads left to right every time. You get
Mhm.
stuff, you process stuff, you generate value for stuff.
Yeah.
And your brands, your makers of things have different care abouts, and your distributors of things that have different care abouts than customers. But understanding how everyone thinks helps you build better programs.
Mm. Yeah, absolutely, and I think that's such a great thing, and I think it's credible to see just your curiosity and your knowledge path on how you've gone about learning these different things and pursuing it and creating that passion overall. And I think it's fantastic that you've written the book. A huge amount of value in there, and with the mindset that like, okay, like this is something that my employees can do, and I think that's such a great point there, not only for reverse logistics, but just like any process or any part of your business in general. Like, I mean, if you're not having a robust way to train people and get them an understanding of like, hey, this is what we're doing here, and have somebody that they can, ask or bounce ideas off of that is, well versed in that arena. I mean, I think you're doing your company a disservice in a sense, right? And so you want to be able to create those programs and be able to do that. So I'm curious, as we start to create greater awareness, right, which you're making a big effort and push towards, and education around reverse logistics in general, as we start to look at the future, and I don't think that returns are certainly not declining, right? I mean, the more e-commerce, online shopping, returns just exponentially continues to grow. So as we look to the future, and as we get more people that are involved in returns, reverse logistics, educated on the subject, I mean, what do you think the future of reverse logistics really looks like?
One of the things that I found
Mm.
when I was running reverse logistics in at Verizon and at Cisco was once people understood what I did for a living, it was very easy to recruit people to come through
Mm.
because
Interesting.
what I found has changed. When I started in at Verizon, the number one motivator for new employees was money.
Mm.
Over time, when I left Fortune 50, the employee surveys for people who were onboarded changed to where the number one driving force was having a sense of purpose. People don't
Mm.
want a job; they want a mission, and they're willing to spend more. So if you think about it through the lens of this next generation, very quickly is going to be the top spending demographic for any business to chase
Yeah.
sales to. You have to adapt to that. I do think that return rates are going to go down as companies go through and change policies to adapt to online shopping. There's already starting to be a little bit of a level off in online returns as people are going through and adjusting free
Mm.
shipping and time. And they're going through with artificial intelligence and machine learning, now learning what are the hallmarks and characteristics of transactions that drive returns. I'll use the apparel one, for instance. There are some companies now that will identify that, Kevin, you bought that gray shirt in
Mm.
three different sizes. So instead of just fulfilling, they'll have someone reach out to you and say, have you seen your sizing chart? There's also
Interesting.
some augmented reality tools that allow you to go through and take an image of your body to
Mm.
go through and help you fit for size or superimpose your face on a piece of clothing so you can see how it would really look on you. So there's some cool things that are going on around that to drive it down. But over 40% of Fortune 50 companies have made publicly stated environmental sustainability and governance goals. Um, Easy to say, tough to do. When
Mm.
you've got a lot of people that are saying, yes, we're going to make a commitment to do this, but no one knows how.
Mm.
My viewpoint of how it's going to change is, and it's my new buzzword. This is how I'm making reverse logistics sexy. My
There
new
you go.
buzzword is I do believe that companies will invest in training on circular logistics. There's over 100 definitions of the word circular economy. Easy to say what it is, very hard to do it. My measurement of the success of a circular economy is the amount of times a product can go from forward when you make it for the first time
Mm.
through reverse to assess cosmetic and functional condition and match it with the next customer which is a forward logistics operation.
Mm.
Logistics is movement from point to point. Forward is moving to the point. Reverse is moving from the point, and it doesn't necessarily have to move backwards. In a circular economy world, you're competing for returns. The same way a Lexus that sells a new car is
Hmm.
competing to have that car returned so they can sell more Lexuses. But
Mm.
if you drive a Lexus onto a Chevy lot, they're going to sell you a Chevy and sell your Lexus because there's value in it.
Right. Yeah.
So circular platforms have made it easy and harder for companies to track. But I do think that companies will invest in circular logistics to make the movement through
Mm.
the circular economy, through forward warehouses that have systems, processes, and tools that are different than the systems, processes, and tools you need for reverse, because things don't come in new condition. You
Yeah.
don't need to assess functional and cosmetic. You don't need to clear information off like you do in reverse. It's much
Yeah.
more complicated, I found, getting things out of stores and putting them into stores and doing it right. But I do think that there is going to be an overwhelming push for circular economy and circular logistics because the economical aspect will scream at companies that if they don't participate, they're going to miss out. And circular logistics being the movement of with new tools is going to become more and more understood
Mm.
and more important.
Mm. Interesting. Yeah. Yeah. I think that's very interesting perspective there and insight. I mean, I think it'd be interesting to see how that continues to grow because I mean, you do see like these different things where people are trying to do different things. I know, like I've seen a couple furniture places where they're like, "Oh, see the item in your space," right? And it's like that augmented reality, like you talked about. Or I think there was one. I forget this. I was looking at some glasses, and you could like on the webcam, like you could see the glasses on your face, right? Instead of like, trying to reduce like the amount of stuff that's being shipped out, as you mentioned there, and recognizing that. And I think it's very interesting to see how companies are trying to reduce that and then also capture things where there is value, like you said, based on the more data that's out there and the more things they're understanding. They're getting smarter about these programs and these processes. So it's very interesting stuff to talk to you here, Rich, about and learn more about this reverse logistics side and about your circular reverse logistics journey, I guess we could say, throughout the years and how you've been involved in these different programs and now the book as well. So I really appreciate you coming on and talking to us about these topics. Now, if people are interested in getting in touch with you or they want to learn more about how to get the book or where can they get the book, what's the best way to do that?
My love language is LinkedIn. If you want to reach out to me, Rich Bulger on LinkedIn, I'm very easy to find and I'm very responsive. What I hope is the next generation is going to take this book and make it better. The first one and the one that they used in my college program was written in 1999. It was called Going Backwards, when
Wow.
the whole concept was to drive down unwanted returns. So it
Mhm.
took 25 years for an updated book to get created because it's hard to
Yeah.
write it down. The book is available on Amazon if you want to purchase it there. I've got a LinkedIn to my Shopify on my LinkedIn page if you want to go through and purchase it through Shopify. So I'm very easy to find.
All right, great. And we'll definitely put your LinkedIn and all those links on how to find the book as well at thenewwarehouse.com. Very insightful, valuable book. And as you said, the newest update in 25 years has got to be good stuff. So definitely check it out and check out all those links at thenewwarehouse.com so you can easily find them. So, Rich, thank you once again for your time on the show today.
I appreciate you having me. Thank you.